Can you hear me okay? Is that working? Welcome to Using Apple Foundation Models with Xojo. I'm Mark Zeder. I'm the publisher of XDev magazine. We've been publishing continuously since 2002, which is kind of crazy. I noticed when Christian mentioned he was 2001, I was like, man, only a year older. But anyway, we publish in PDF format every other month, and each magazine has like 70 and 100 pages of Xojo content in it. And we also do XDev library, which is basically an a la carte system where you can purchase back articles and books and instruction things about stuff you can do with Xojo. So today I'm going to talk a little bit, mostly going to do some demonstration stuff. It's mostly going to be the demos, but I'm going to talk about using Apple Foundation models with Xojo. So Apple Foundation models are basically free AI that Apple has bundled with the latest operating system. So I'll be the caveat right off the bat that this is not cross-platform. This is only available for Mac, and you have to be running Tahoe, the latest OS. So, but I still think even if you're, Windows user or somebody else, some of these same techniques you could probably adapt with some other technologies and might find it useful. But what intrigued me about these models is, first of all, they're completely free. There's three different models that Apple has included. One is an on-device model. It's very small. It's about 3 billion parameters. But none of your data ever leaves the machine. It doesn't require internet. So it's just a very compact model that you can actually use to do some AI things. Apple also has the private cloud compute, which is running their own servers that they've actually engineered a whole complicated system to guarantee that the data is all encrypted coming in. After it's finished, it only takes the data in that it needs to actually solve, whatever AI question you've given it, and then it deletes all that. And they've set it up so even third parties can come in and audit it and make sure that it's private. So it's a pretty neat system, and it's basically a hardware-based platform for the privacy part of it. So if you're interested in private internet, private AI, where it's not gonna, your data is not going to be used for training things, these options are pretty good. The third option is they actually have it. You can actually use ChatGPT. This is based on Apple's agreement that they have with OpenAI. It's possible now that Apple's getting in bed with Google with rumors for their next upgrade to Siri and all that using Gemini. Maybe they'll add Gemini to this. I don't know. This is supposedly private according to the contract that Apple has with OpenAI. You can read what you want into that if you trust that. It's more of a legal agreement than it is anything that you can really guarantee that it's actually private. But OpenAI has said that they won't use your data for training and things like that. So, but these are the three different ones, and they each have some advantages and disadvantages. The biggest one of all these is they're completely free. There's no you don't have to have any kind of accounts or contracts or anything, set anything up. You just make the calls and use it. It's private. It can be local if you're using the on-device one, and I actually set it up so I'm accessing this via shortcuts. How many of you guys have used Apple shortcuts? Okay, I see a few number of you have. Basically, Apple shortcuts used to be a company that made a product called Workflow, and Apple bought it and renamed it Shortcuts. And I actually like the name Workflow much better because basically it's not really a scripting system, but it's an automation system. And basically, Apple has added access to these three models within that. And we can actually call that from Xojo. So like I said, this is not cross-platform, requires Tahoe and Apple Silicon. On-device is definitely not as fast or as capable as some of the bigger models. Some of these models, they're running on Apple servers, things like that. There are a few little unique quirks. Models aren't going to have current world knowledge and things like that. Cloud models can have some usage limits. My research on this, they never say anywhere what those limits are. They just say there are some usage limits. So I think they're just protecting themselves so that somebody wants to try to abuse it and call it 15 billion times, they would say, you can't use it that much. But I've never hit any limits, and I'm just doing some testing with it, and it's it never had any issues. But in theory, they could rate you on some of that and slow you down. So what are some things you can do with AI? My favorite thing is just right now I'm using a lot for just utility tasks, just busy work on my computer, helping me just do little odds and ends and things that I want to do. Anything from organizing my files, proofreading, writing, completing busy work, analysis of things. You can use it for helping you create your website and content and things like that. Obviously, we can use it for some programming side of things. I'm not a big fan of having AI write your entire program, and right now, especially with Xojo, I don't think that's very feasible. But you can use it for a lot of helpful things, from code analysis to just having it give you suggestions and strategies, writing out individual methods. And one I'm going to demonstrate today is commenting code. So we're going to have AI comment our code for us, because that's something we all hate having to do, right? You can also take these and embed it into your own projects. So you can basically, example I like to use is, like, say you have some text, a text field where somebody's, one of your users is typing some text in. You could have a little button that says proofread, and it just, corrects their text for spelling and things like that. And basically you could just, use one of these AI models to do that very easily and simply without having to worry about setting up an AI contract with, one of the AI servers or something like that. I could have a picture description, automatic categorization, things like that. So there's a lot of things you could do within your app. So using the foundation models, there's two different ways. Basically, one is via Apple shortcuts, which is what I'm going to demonstrate today. I warn you, it's a little kludgy. It can be tricky to implement. The input-output process is a little awkward, which I will show you in a second. This is definitely not ideal for public distribution. I don't even recommend it for that. Basically, if the way that you have to do this is you create the shortcut that actually calls the AI, and then the user has to install that on their system. And Apple's kind of done some protective stuff. So if I just give you a shortcut and you try to install it, it's going to give you a bunch of warnings like, you sure you want to install this? This might be doing something weird, and kind of scare off. So especially if you had naive users, they're going to be like, I don't want to do this. It might break my system. And so you definitely, wouldn't want to do this for like a commercial application. But it's fine for just playing around, using it internally for your own things. It works great for that. The other way is with the Monkey Bed plugins. Obviously, some of the things there, it's more complicated, costs some money. It's much more powerful, and you can do a lot more with that. And if you're going to be doing, public distribution, that's the way I would definitely recommend that you go with that. So here's what a shortcut actually looks. Let me zoom in on this, if I can do it on this screen. I don't know. It always, let's see. It's not really letting me. Oh, there we go. So. Okay, can you guys see that? So if you haven't seen shortcuts, basically it creates little blocks, and each block is a separate step, and this is basically 3 steps. This particular is they're all really simple like this that I'm going to demonstrate, but this is what they look like. And pretty much what I usually do is I actually duplicate this and then just change the name and then change, like for example, here in the middle is our actual prompt, and I would just change the prompt to something else, and then all of a sudden this shortcut, instead of doing what this one does, which is summarize some text, it does something completely different, whatever your prompt is. So the key thing, this is how simple the actual shortcut is. The tricky part is you have to set it up so that it receives some kind of data from the share sheet, whatever kind of data you're putting into it, and you have to tell it that it's coming out. The middle part is where you actually tell it which model you're using. So the parts in blue here are variables or pop-up menus that you can set within shortcuts. So if you clicked on private cloud compute, there's a screenshot, so I can't click on it, but it would actually give you a choice of on-device, private cloud, or ChatGPT, and you just pick which one you want. So in this case, I picked private cloud. I put in my little prompt there, which says, summarize the following text in just a few sentences with no line breaks. And I use that particular way for something that I'll demonstrate later in the presentation, and that's why I used that particular wording. But basically, when you're setting up your shortcut, you have to make sure it says share in share sheet, or show in share sheet, and then down here you have to set it to provide output. And the reason is because the way that we're accessing this via the shell command in Xojo, that's how it's able to pass information and get information back from the shortcut itself. So basically, like I said, it receives the input, calls the foundation model, outputs a response. Pretty simple. So within Xojo itself, we call it via the shell. The command is actually called shortcuts run. And then you have the name of your shortcut, and then there's a couple parameters you use to set the file or files that are being sent in, and an output file that will be used for outputting. One of the advantages I like doing this, if you've ever done anything with shortcuts, it's not really a programming language at all. Theoretically, you can have some loops and things like that, but it's just getting it to add two numbers together is a real pain. It's not very coding like at all. But when you're embedding this within Xojo and calling it from Xojo, it's really cool because then you can use all of Xojo's coding to do pre and post processing to the AI command. So you can basically take some data, mass it around, do whatever you want to do with it, get it prepped and ready to send to the AI so that it's in a certain format that the AI can expect. Like, for example, you want to make it certain consistency to the data, you could set it up in Xojo, get it all ready, and then when it comes back out, you can do the same thing. You can use Xojo to post-process it, clean it up a little bit, you can convert it to another format, whatever you want to do with it. You're free to do that within a Xojo app. So this is an example of Xojo source code. This is an entire method for doing it's called summarize. You can see it really tiny at the top up there. So we send in an article. I was using this for magazine. So I send in an article, and it comes back with a string, which is a summary of that article, right? So I send it some text, comes back with some text. But the way this does is all we do is we create a temporary file, and we're just using a special folder, temporary. We create an output file, which is very the same. I have a utility method that I created called new file name, which just creates the same file name as the first one, but it appends a -c in the name, so it'd be test-c.txt. Just so that's basically our new converted file. And basically then you have your shell command. I build the shell command, the shortcuts run, the name of the shortcut, which is summarize short. We have the parameter input path, which we pass it the file name for input file, and output file, we pass it the file name for that. We execute the command, and then we return whatever's in that file. So the shortcut runs, it sticks it into the file, this reads it out of the file, and that's how simple it is. It's pretty easy code. And you can basically take this, variations of this for any of your shortcut needs. I've had one that I wanted to use the clipboard, so I just literally take the clipboard and save it to this file, and then at the end here, instead of returning the text, I just put it back on the clipboard, with the new text. So you can kind of do whatever you want with this. But the only way you could communicate to the shortcut is via a file and get it back out of a file. There's not any other way to get information to and from the shortcut. So if you want to use MonkeyBread, I'm not going to really talk about this, but I'll give you the link here. This is their website with their commands for accessing these same models. And you can see they've got a lot of different things, but it's basically very similar, where you choose which model you're doing on device, cloud private compute, or ChatGPT, and you give it your parameters and your prompt and whatever you're wanting to do with things. And they've got a sample example software of what you could do there. But all right, so now I will do some demos and just kind of show you some of this, how this stuff works, and then we'll have time for some questions. I don't know if I mentioned earlier, this is based on an article that I wrote, published in the January issue of XDev. And so some of you may have already seen this. It's kind of a similar demo to what I did in that article, but what I've done is I cleaned it up a little bit, made it a little bit different, but I also added some new things that were not in that article. So that's what I will kind of demonstrate. So Okay, so first one I'll show is one called Describe Photos. Basically, this is a list box that accepts file drops of photos. Original file names here. It sends it to the AI. In this case, I'm using private cloud compute. It sends it to the Apple servers, looks at the picture. I told it with the prompt to come back with a list of keywords that describe that particular picture. And it comes back and adds it to the file name and just renames the file. And I did it this way because I don't want to have metadata that can get lost. I wanted it just in the file name so that it's there in the file name. And then potentially you could do things like I could have another Xojo program that could look at all your pictures and get all your do a search, and it would grab all of your sunset pictures and put them in one folder or something. So all your sunset pictures are in one folder, or pictures of your dog or whatever. You can kind of categorize this, and I'll show you in a minute. I'll show you when I do the demo. So yeah, so a few different things. Let me exit this real quick, and by the way, this is what the shortcut app looks like in the bottom right there. And I'll zoom in here so you can see these. These are what, I put them all in a folder here called xdev, but these are basically what these look like. So I'll just really quickly, as we're here, this is that one that I showed you the screenshot of before. So if you click on private cloud compute, you can pick the different models and things like that from there and what you're doing. And so I've got a few different shortcuts that I created, but they have to be installed on the system because basically Xojo is just calling these and executing them. So I'm going to switch over here to my Xojo project. Let me run this, and hopefully this will all work. So first thing we're going to do, try to move this over. Okay, so I've got those same files that you just saw here, and what I'll do real quick just to show you. This particular one is one I wrote in the article, but it's not really using AI. It's just a shortcut that I was using for testing, but it just creates a grid. You drop it a bunch of photos and it creates a single picture, a grid picture. But this way you can see what these pictures look like. So I'm going to drop them over here, and now it's working on should be working yeah, there it goes. So you can see it over here in the background. It's renaming them. And eventually it'll update the list box here, and you can see, there we go. Can everybody see that? So if you actually look at the pictures in here, see it says fish and chips, and there's fish and chips in the view, beach view, blue checkered paper. And it actually renamed the files on the hard drive here. And I'll give you a link at the end of this, what you can download both this project, all the test files, these test files, and you'll have everything. It even has my slide presentation in it, so you can grab all that and take a look at stuff. But I'm running this on Apple's new Neo laptop, so it's like the slowest laptop they make, and it's still very, very fast. And this is doing private cloud compute, so it's sending it probably to Apple servers in the States. I don't even know if they have those servers elsewhere, but you can see it did it pretty quickly. Let me switch back to the presentation here. And next demo is one, I'm going to show you an example of proofreading text. And I've actually been using variations, not this specific one with Apple's. I've been using ChatGPT version, but I've been using proofreading for the magazine for probably 2 years now. And it works great. The one thing that I do, you'll find a lot of times when you use AI for proofreading is it wants to replace your entire file with its corrected version. And that isn't always a good idea for a number of reasons. One, it's not that it makes mistakes, but it's just a very formal way of doing it. So for example, I write some fiction, and I might have a character who talks in slang or says I'm gonna go to the store. And ChatGPT would see that and would say, oh, I'm going to the store, not gonna. You can't use, and I'm like, no, that's part of that. That's how that character talks. I don't want to change that. So what I've come up with is I use BB Edit, which is a very popular Mac text editor, and it has a comparison feature. So I save the Proofread file as a separate document, and then I bring it up in BB Edit, and I'll demonstrate that. Because it shows me, literally highlights exactly what was changed, what the AI was wanting me to change in the proofreading. And the advantage of that is I can then select and reject each one. So I don't know if you can read this here. This is just a sample markdown file that we use for the magazine. This is part of just a fake sort of article that has some code in it, has various things. This is all set up the way we'd run it in the magazine. But I went through this and I added a bunch of typos in it. So I'm going to drop it over here onto Proofread. And I've set this up. You can actually drop multiple files, so you could have it proofread, a whole slew of files if you want it. Not the fastest, but there it goes. So it took the original file with sample article typos, and it added that -c on the end. And there's the file right there. So what I'm doing is I'm opening both up in BBEdit, and I'm going to do the compare command. And the one thing you want to do on this, if you're using this particular program, is you want to make sure which way you're going. So for example, this is my original. I can tell there's no -c on that one, and this one has the -c. So that tells me the proofread one is on the left and the original is on the right. And down here is a list of all the errors that it found. So basically we would go in here and we'd look at this and it says, well, even if you got not, okay, obviously that should be yours, so that's a correct thing. It even found that we misspelled Xojo here and corrected that. Isn't that pretty cool? It actually knows how to spell Xojo. So basically if you want this correction, you just, down here at the bottom, if you can see this, it says you can apply it whichever direction you want. So in this case, I want the corrected version to replace the original, so I just click apply to the right. And now those two match now. And then I hit the down arrow and I get to the next one and I can just do the same thing. And most of the time these are just typos and careless errors, and it's like I just want them to change. So I just literally keep hitting down arrow, go to the next correction, and I just hit go. And if there's one I don't like and it's like, no, I really want it to be worded that way, I can actually just go the other direction and say from the original, move it over here. And that way you want them both to match. That way you can tell when you're finished, because otherwise it'll keep saying there's a difference between the files. And this is cool. It's even found, there's one down here, it found a typo in the code. I spelled price wrong. Price as double. And it's like, no, that should be price with an I in the middle. So it's pretty cool. It's not actually analyzing the code in this sense. It's just looking for typos and stuff. But it works pretty good. I've been very pleased with just basic type, proofreading is very, very helpful. And then once you're all done, you can save the file. And but I like this because you can really quickly go through each correction and approve or reject the suggestions. And so that's what I do for proofreading. So let me go here. And I should also add, I took this screenshot before I made those changes, but within BBEdit, you can actually change the colors of how it highlights that. So I made it for the thing, I made it so it highlighted the actual word changes in yellow and the selected paragraph that was comparing in green. But this screenshot was older, it didn't quite have that. But at least you can see that difference there. So you can change those colors into whatever works for you. So this is one for basically adding code comments. So this is interesting. It's actually an advantage for using the shortcut, because we have two ways we can use this. One way is we can basically copy paste the code from the Xojo IDE into a Xojo app, which I'll demonstrate. But the other way we can do this, because this is actually a shortcut, in this particular one here, that if we do the first one, we get the advantage of it's running inside a Xojo app, so we can do pre and post processing to the content. But when you just run the shortcut itself, the shortcut itself just has a prompt that says, comment this code. That we can do, just the shortcut itself can do it, right? We don't have to do it. We don't have to involve Xojo, a special Xojo app. So that gives us an advantage because we can actually just run that right within the IDE. So let me exit this. I'll jump over here to my other screen. And we're still running the demo here. But what I'll show you is, I'm going to go, all right, so this is just one of the routines. This is the routine that picture that I had that it put the group picture on. This is the paint routine for that, right? So it's just drawing that picture, basically. It's a pretty simple routine. But I'm going to go here and do copy. And we're still running the demo here, so I'm just going to hit comment code. And we should hear something.
Commented code is on the clipboard.
Okay, so it did it and put it on the clipboard. So now I'm back in Xojo. If I hit paste, there it, can you guys all see that? It, whoa, long comments there. But I told it to use double slashes. I prefer those for actual real comments. I use the apostrophe for like temporary comments, things that aren't, I'm just blocking out some code and stuff. So these are kind of official comments like that. And they're actually pretty good. It actually figured out, for example, draw the picture to fill the entire view area, scaling to fit as necessary. So it's actually understanding the code and putting stuff there. So I'm just undoing that. I'm just going to select the text. And from within, this is with the other way, this is calling the shortcut directly. So remember how I said when we set up the shortcut, we set it up to use as a share sheet. And there's also a button for doing it as a service. So if I go down here, this is the contextual menu. So I've selected, so basically right-clicking. And I go down here, services, I see down here it says comment code. That is the exact name of my shortcut. And I choose that. It does come up with this thing asking me if it'll give it permission to use the clipboard. So I have to tell it yeah. But once I've done that, you see it's done the same thing. It's appended the comments. So the only real difference is this is only doing that particular function, whatever I've set up as the prompt. Whereas if I did this within the Xojo app, that button that I dragged to, you could actually do some post-processing into that and have it do a little bit more analysis. So I'm just going to really quickly here show you, this is what that comment code shortcut looks like. So we're receiving files and text, quick actions, I guess that's what makes it show up as a service thing. If there's no input, it gets the clipboard. So for that service one, it just looks for the clipboard if we're not dropping a file into it. And this is the actual prompt that I came up with. When I first started doing this, it was adding the comments, but it was like appending a bunch of extraneous information at the end, the way AIs like to do. It would, oh, this is what this, I did all this stuff for you and blah blah blah. And it was like, no, just add some comments to the code. I don't need a commentary. I just want the comments there. So I said, don't include extra commentary and mark up the code. Just return the commented code, and it worked. And then the last thing we do is we stop and output it, and it says if there's nowhere to output, copy to clipboard. So that's why it works when we do it with the contextual menu within Xojo. It's not getting a drop file, so it looks in the clipboard for the source, and then it puts it back on the clipboard. And that's how simple the actual shortcut is. It's pretty basic. All right, let's see. And then the other demo I'm going to show you, this one's a little bit more specific to my needs with XDev Magazine. But from the very beginning, when I first launched it, I do the layout in Adobe InDesign. And Adobe InDesign has a feature where you can bring in a XML file with your article in it all tagged up, so you can have special tags for the headlines and code and all the different things that are going to be, bold, italic, all that kind of stuff. So I've been using XML for that purpose since 2002 when I launched the magazine. And one of the things I did way back then was I took those same XML files and I rendered them to HTML with a Xojo app that I wrote. And it just, it's sort of behind not really a paywall, but it just gives you an excerpt of the first few paragraphs of the article that it puts on my website. And, but it gets that from the actual XML file that we use in the magazine. So one of the things I did was I added a description field, and my thought was, I'll put a little, summarize the article in a couple sentence or two, and then that can be rendered onto the static HTML, for the website, so that every article will have a little brief description of what it is. Well, I'm publishing at the very last minute. This is the sort of thing you do when I'm publishing the new issue. The very last thing I'm doing is creating the website for all the new articles. I don't really want to sit right down at that point and go, okay, I want to read a 3,000 word article and summarize it in 2 sentences. So bottom line is I never filled any of these in. I have literally thousands of these files and they all have description, no description available. I never did that feature. And all of a sudden the other day I'm like, dang, I mean, AI is like the ideal thing is for summarizing articles. How come I can't just write a thing that will just go through all those XML files, read them, summarize them, and insert this in? So that's when I wrote this shortcut. So I'm going to go over here. I'll show you. This is this is an actual XML file of an article that I wrote for the last issue. It's also about AI. It was called Impossible. Doing the impossible, so it's a little adventures I had trying to get AI to do stuff for me. So it's a pretty long article, as you can see here. It's all embedded, and you'll see up here under description it says no description available, right? Because again, it's hard to summarize a several thousand word article that way. So what I did here in our demo here is I can just pick up this file, and I'm going to drop it onto this. It says add XML description is what that says, if you can read that. And it's thinking a few seconds here. It's actually having to, I tried using the on-device.
Description added.
So I'm using private cloud compute for this one. I tried using the on-device one for this, and it petered out. It said, that's too much text, I can't summarize it, or something like that. It didn't like it. So I had to use on-device. Ooh, I think that, what's that?
What did you use? Did you use
I did private cloud compute. Yeah. So I used the private cloud compute for that model. So I'm just going to open up. Wait, I don't need to open up both of them. Why am I doing that? Okay. So this is that. It actually created, even though I told it to create a very short description, it still created pretty long. I think I need to go back into my prompt. Before I finally work with this, I need to go in and basically tell it to give it a hard limit, like say, 25 words or 250 characters or something like that. I just said I can show you my prompt, but I said something like, in a few sentences or something like that. So it created this it's a pretty long article. Yeah, and see what the length of the article is. It's 7,000 words. So that right there. So it's 7,000 word article. And how long did that take? A few seconds to summarize that. But the summary is actually pretty good. It actually talks about all the different things that I tried to do and gives a pretty good summary. And then it saves it back into this XML file. So in theory, I could modify this and just feed it all the XML files, all the how many thousands there are, from my website, and it would go through and just automatically add these. And I think what I'm probably going to do is I wrote my conversion program that converts from XML to HTML for the website. I'll just add this feature right in there. So in the future, as it's converting new articles, it'll just automatically read them and add the description. And I won't have to think about it, and it'll just do it. And that'll be really nice. So stuff like that, I think, is pretty cool. So I think that's about it, actually. This went pretty fast. But so again, we're going to access Apple's foundation models for free. You can access it via shortcuts, a little bit of setup. You have to set up the shortcuts, or you can access it with the Monkey Bread plugins, which is more like a traditional, it's just going to be built into your program, and you can access it. Give you some time. These are some tiny examples. I wanted to come up with things that were simple enough I can explain in 5 minutes and not something super complicated. But it gives you a taste of kind of what you could do with some of this. And there was examples, I think Christian showed how he's got the llama on device thing, from his plugins. There's some other ones that different things have. So you could do similar kinds of stuff with some of those other AIs, and embed them into your own projects or use them for your own. Again, I'm using them mostly for my utility programs, things like that. So here's the URL. Should be able to download this file. It's got all my demos. It's even got those sample pictures, everything you need to do the tests and duplicate what I just did today. It also includes all the shortcuts, so you can actually look at those and install them on your system if you want, and play with this and experiment with this. And like I said, I usually just take one of the existing shortcuts duplicate it, and once it's duplicated, change the name and just change the prompt on it so that it's doing something completely different, and all of a sudden you've got new AI capabilities for your shortcuts. Yeah.
I was wondering, I guess there isn't a way for you to pass in the prompt to the...
So he's asking if there's a way to pass in the prompt. You could, in a way. It depends. It might be a little... Actually, no, I don't think you could. What am I thinking of? Because basically you have no way of telling the shortcut what the prompt is, right? That's embedded in the shortcut.
Yeah, if you could, you'd only need one shortcut.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's no way to do it. I was thinking you could send it as a part of a file, but then there's no way for it to tell it what that file is supposed to be in the prompt. So you'd have to create a separate shortcut, which is kind of a disadvantage with this approach, because I've already got half a dozen or so there, and if you had 20 or 30, 40 different projects with lots of these, I kind of created this just because I read about that shortcuts could access the models, and I just thought, I wonder if I can access that via Xojo without plugins, and I just thought this is kind of fun, and it's just an interesting way to do it, and it works. You got a question?
What kind of subscription do you use?
What kind of subscription?
Yeah, for artificial intelligence, ChatGPT.
I don't use any subscription right now. I use ChatGPT. I've used ChatGPT, but just the free. Well, technically, I do use the API one. I do pay for that. But that's actually I do the proofreading for the magazine, for example. But that's I think I put $5 on there 2 years ago, and I still have $4 and something left because I'm just sending it a few articles to proofread and stuff, and it uses a penny or two each time. It's really cheap. Okay. But I don't pay a monthly fee or anything like that yet. I've been told that I read some articles that said that you get much better, the newer models are better, and you get those if you pay for it. So I'm thinking that's going to be my next experiment is to get a subscription to some of these and experiment and kind of do more. I'm just kind of playing with a lot of the AI stuff, but I'm getting more serious about it. So I'm thinking I want to do some more research.
I use an AI model. I use Claude Code.
Right.
And I use it heavily every day, and I only spend $20 a month.
Right.
And I never run out. I mean, that's plenty.
So $20 a month on Claude, he never runs out. So that's a good plug for Claude. So. And any other questions? You got a question?
I was wondering the examples you've shown, with commented code. There you take a bunch of code, feed it into the AI, and get it back and paste it, replacing the original code.
Right.
And I would be worried that the AI is not only adding comments, but also doing little changes or introducing bugs or whatever that you can't really easily review. So when doing such a thing in a larger scale, I would always add a verification layer at the end, where, for example, where you replace all the commands with empty string and compare that the input and the output is still the same, so that the AI did only add commands.
Right, and that's something you could do if you created my thought. I haven't even started on this, but my theory is I might create a little Xojo utility program that has a floating palette, or maybe it's accessed via the menu bar or something, that I just have little buttons on it that help me do things, and I could have a code comment one. And because I'm doing it via Xojo, it's still using the shortcuts AI to do the AI part of it, but then I could have a comparison window and have it, so you could double check and things like that. But I was surprised in my, when my experimenting, obviously I'm just doing a short piece of code, but it seemed to do exactly what I told it. It wasn't messing with the code at all. It was just adding the comments.
It's not deterministic.
But no, that's very true. And right now, that's the way I'm doing it. There, it's so simple. It's you can only do one method. So if you created a way, which you probably could with some pre-processing on Xojo's part, you could set it up. You could copy 20 methods and have it add comments to all of them. That might be something where you'd want to make sure that, because that's going to be harder to get back into your Xojo project, and if it screws things up, that could be bad. But I just wanted to see if how it would do that, just to see. I've got older projects, and it's I did put comments in there, and you come back 10 years later, and you're like, what was I doing here? And so it's just kind of useful to have it, analyze it, and put some comments in there. So I thought it was kind of fun. But yeah, just like I do with the proofreading, I make sure that I really want those changes. So you do the same type of thing where you verify it before you approve it. Any other questions or comments? All right, I guess we're done.